This episode is brought to you by Radio Mastery. Radio Mastery helps radio professionals to dominate their market and reach number one. Apply today at radiomastery.com.au. It's been a couple of weeks since the last episode of Biz Audio, excluding the catch-up I had with Peter Samios that was done on Tuesday. So you check that out. It was a great catch-up, but I've been away on holidays and I've still been keeping an eye on what's been happening in Australian radio, but I've been listening to some Asian radio stations. Sounded pretty similar to some of the stations here, but it's a lot more music-focused and a lot of smaller markets. Okay, starting off with the GfK survey for this was the main story of I guess I could say this week. It was another reminder that Australian radio is still changing because some stations continue to grow, but the biggest talking point is what happens post Kyle and Jackie O in Sydney, not so much with Melbourne. But Sydney, we can chat about Smooth FM staying number one, 2GB remaining consistent, and ABC Sydney enjoying one of its better surveys, and Kiss Breakfast has continued its loss of listeners after the Kyle and Jackie O departure. Triple M and Nova have increased their reach, and I just want to say, I think listeners have just moved on. I don't think that Kiss can retain many. Of course, I think that they'll get a big name in next year and it'll go back up. I'm certain of that because, look, I think it can only go down so far for KISS 106.5. 101.1's a different story, but I think 106.5 is a strong station and it has a great chance to put someone fresh on the Brecky Show. But I think that for now, Mikey and the team, Brooklyn as well, doing an amazing job and they're not doing anything wrong whatsoever. I just think it's the loyal listeners of Kyle and Jackie O that are really showing that they can't wait for Kyle's brand new show. Over in Melbourne, 3AW is still the market leader. ABC Melbourne had a nice survey. Nova 100 reached more people than ever, and Christian O'Connell lost ground again. As Dave Cameron said, it's not alarm bells ringing at Gold 104.3. It's to be expected that he can jump around a fair bit, but it's been a difficult year for ARN. Christian O'Connell has lost the audience. Jonesy and Amanda did drop. I think that was pretty surprising. And Dave Cameron has admitted there's been a few bumps, but they're playing the long game. I don't want to touch too much on Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth, all pretty similar there. But moving over back to Kiss Brecky, Melissa Leong co-hosted Kiss Breakfast these last few days. I think that it was an interesting choice. Melissa Leong, the MasterChef judge, I'm pretty sure that she was on radio back when she first started her career. I'm not sure where, I couldn't find that out, but I think that it was interesting to see how they used her cooking, or what do they call it, food critic expertise to taste Mikey's brownies or see how good Brooklyn's omelette was. So I enjoyed seeing those videos on social media. Some other big news at ARN for the week. Vic LaRusso has departed ARN. He was the Sydney traffic voice for over 2 decades, with ARN ending the arrangement, but within days, SCA picked him up for 2Day FM and Triple M, and it shows how valuable he can be. He's the CEO of the Australian Traffic Network, and that's great to see there. Duncan Campbell has launched his brand new consultancy business after 15 years at ARN. He departed, I believe it was, I want to say end of 2024, beginning of 2025. He departed as the Chief Content Officer, and he's using AI alongside programming expertise, and he has launched his brand new CD media consultancy, partnering with, I think, Max Dragon over in Singapore. And former 2GB headquarters has been listed for sale. It's one of Australia's most iconic radio buildings. I believe Gongcha is currently in there right now. So I finally have an answer for this next part that we're going to touch on. The last few episodes, I've been chatting, does anyone know what happened to Resonate Broadcasting? Well, now we have an answer. Resonate Broadcasting has sold its Queensland stations, and it's been sold to Jason Morrison. This was a surprise for many, and it's another ownership change. Regional radio has continued to evolve. Interesting choice for Jason Morrison there. And finishing off the episode with a nice little piece from Sarah Patterson. That's right, if you logged on to Radio Today about a week ago, you could check out an article featuring me. I was away while it happened, but I'm so grateful to Sarah Patterson and Radio Today. It was pretty surreal seeing my story up there, and hopefully this is only the beginning. Let's finish up with some bigger questions that I want to touch on. Is Australian radio becoming too predictable? Survey 5 should be an interesting one. Look, I don't really have too many predictions. DAB is always going to stay the same, but I think it's a real test to see, can Christian O'Connell make ground, and can the Nova network continue to dominate nationally? I don't want to forget Triple M and SCA. that's a different story for now. And don't even get me started on Today FM. A breakfast show is changing too often. I don't think this really applies for regional. I really think we should look at some prime examples. Nova switching their breakfast show in Sydney to Drive, and then vice versa. ARN, well, I guess that was a pretty difficult situation. Speaking of ARN, I just remembered Jackie O. Oh, goodness, it doesn't end here. Not done in good faith is the claim that ARN have challenged Jackie O's workplace bullying claim with, and ARN have also come out with some more comments saying that the services that they were contractually bound to provide, Miss Henderson did not want to go ahead with that, and instead to provide Miss Henderson with an alternative day part. And yeah, it just goes on for a bit. I don't really understand all the legal jargon, but if anyone does want to explain it to me, tag me at biz_audio on Instagram. But I think it's interesting to see the tactics that ARN are coming up with to sort of get out of this legal trouble. I think that no company would want to be in any sort of trouble like this, especially with such a high-profile guest such as Jackie O. They've sorted Carl Sandilands. I don't know if there will be a settlement with Jackie O or someone will win. I doubt they'll come to a settlement very, very soon. But of course, we just have to wait and see. August 10th as well, Carl Sandilands live. I believe it's $99 for the whole year, so that's less than $10 a month if you paid the whole yearly. And you can also gift it to someone else through a gift card. I was having a little look around the website the other day, kslive.com.au. And I also got to say, shout out to Bruno. He did a great job teasing the media, taking out the 2 domains, I believe, carlandkyle.com.au and a few others. Great trick there. Apparently, it was $7, and I agree with you, Bruno. It seems like the best $7 you've ever spent. Listen to Biz Audio wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on socials at biz_audio on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can just search Biz Audio. And while I'm at it, check out Substack. I posted an article earlier in the week. 4BC has continued, oh goodness, it's continued their revolving door of breakfast shows. Dean and Sophie are finishing up, or have finished up on 4BC after a very short stint. First, it was Laurel, Gary and Mark, then Peter Fegan, then, oh goodness, who was it after that? Then it was Dean and Sophie. So I think that 4BC really need to take a look at what's happening over there. They need a strong personality on breakfast. Jason Matthews will move forward to breakfast. Gary Hargrave will do mornings, and Drive Show will be moved forward, and Michael McLaren will network afternoons. Interesting to see. Let's hope it doesn't become, what do they call it? 2BC or 4GB, something like that. But it's definitely not the first time that 4BC have had this problem. When they got Laurel, Gary and Mark over from 4KQ, their share went up. And then I believe when listeners started to realise that 4BH was also back in the market, their classic hits weren't only on 4BC, their share went down, and they've just had this revolving door of brekkie shows, very similar to what's happening over at Today FM.